All right, time for another podcast, and this is going to be a great one because I am with Randy Howell. He is a veteran, a 28-year veteran of competitive bass fishing. I think I got that right. Is that right, Randy? About 28 years on the tour level?
It's actually 30 years. They haven't updated my profile from 2 years ago.
Gotcha. So, also, this guy's won. I mean, he's done this for a lot. I mean, gosh, I'm looking at it now. I mean, I've been filming for a lot of years too. So we've been working a long time together, Randy and I. Randy is just the nicest guy you can ever meet, but he'll also just beat your teeth in out on the water. So it's a really cool combination. I look forward to talking with him right now on another fishing podcast.
This isn't another fishing podcast. This is another fishing podcast.
Randy, first and foremost, man, thanks for coming on. I know you're a busy guy, and you got a tournament coming up here soon. I believe it's Guntersville. I should know because I'm going to be hopping on a plane soon. So, you're just kind of getting prepared for that tournament and getting ready.
Yep. Out here sitting in my Triton boat in my garage right now with Lake Guntersville at my back. So I'm going to actually get to stay in my house, in my bed, in my shower, my kitchen, and have my garage with all my tackle all week. So this is going to be a great, fun week coming up here for me on Guntersville.
Yeah, and Guntersville is like legendary. I mean, if you're gonna be a bass fisherman, competitive bass fisherman, and live on a lake, I mean, that's going to be the lake to live on. Guntersville is just like, I mean, it's Shangri-La, I would say, as far as like, and so that's going to be, I mean, there's just tons of big bass in Guntersville, and like, what do you do to kind of give some insights on what it's like to be a professional fisherman? I remember as a young kid, I was just eaten up with bass fishing. I couldn't consume enough, of how bass fishermen actually, not just, I mean, I wanted to know everything, what they did on the water, but I also wanted to know what they did off the water and how they prepared for a tournament. So what is your routine getting ready for this tournament? What does it consist of, getting ready for a Bass Pro Tour event?
Yeah, I'll tell you, most of the tournaments that are out of town, out of state, for me, I get out here in my garage in my boat, and if there's a gap between events, and just quickly, usually I'm always in a rush, so I'm always trying to take tackle out of the truck and out of the boat and try to consolidate down, like going from shallow sight fishing events, and now we're going into more of an offshore pattern, so it's a whole different bunch of rods and reels and line and baits, worms, all kinds of things. So it's basically a whole change out of equipment in the truck and the boat. And the good thing here for Guntersville, I live here, so I can put what I need in the boat and have the rest right here in my garage and not be overloaded. And then if I need something, I'll be back home to get it that afternoon. So that's the good part about it. So that's kind of just really preparation for me is a big, big deal, and it's the worst, and it's the worst thing I think next to driving that we do as professional anglers is preparation, because it drives me nuts because I'm so particular and I'm so set in my ways. The older I'm 49 years old, like I said, I've been doing it since I was a teenager, 30 years professionally. So I've developed all the habits over the years of the process, as I always like to compare to Nick Saban, Alabama football coach. It's all about the process. You can't worry about the outcome, but you got to do the process to make sure the outcome has a chance of turning out right. So I do everything the same way. I'm real particular, everything's got to be just right, and then that kind of gets my head straight and wrapped around everything. Then if I have ideas and I have those gut feelings to do this or do that, I've got everything I need in the boat to be able to do it. And if you don't prepare well, all of a sudden you have an idea, or there's an event, something going on the lake, and you figure it out, or you have a hunch, and then you don't have the bait in the boat or the rod or something, and then you end up missing opportunity. So I'm real particular about my preparation.
And also, I mean, you have, your boat as well. I mean, your truck as well that you could put stuff in. But I mean, is that like a common, I mean, that's got to be a stressor. Like, okay, I got, you guys are running out of 21 foot boats, bass boats now. A lot of room in them, bigger trucks too. But I mean, there's so many variables and so many different things that you can throw at these fish. Is there ever a time when you're like, I don't even have what I need in my truck?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, it definitely is. It's happened to me so many times, and me of all people, it really stresses and drives me nuts if I don't have something I need, because I spend so much time preparing to have everything I need, and I've done it for so long, it's no real excuse for me not having what I need. So when I mess up and don't have it, it drives me nuts. And that last event at the Heavy Hitters event, my final day, top 10 day, when Alton Jr. won and kind of beat us all to death that day, it was a little different there because we're fishing out of tour boats, which we take all our equipment and try to put it in consolidate it into a 19-foot boat. And that's when we mess up and leave stuff that we don't have. And that day I didn't have some of my good shad spawn type swim jigs and spinner baits in my boat, and I still don't know how it got misplaced and didn't get in there. And then I had that feeling that morning, and I started digging around looking for stuff, and I found the spinner bait, but it wasn't the right one, and I didn't have my swim jigs like I really wanted, and didn't have my trailers. And I was just, man, it drove me crazy because I knew that was going on with the cloud cover and the weather, rain, and we had all day. It was still happening, and that's how Alton Jr. capitalized on that, basically because he got in the right spot, right area, of course, but still having the right equipment to do the right thing is real important, and I didn't have it that day like I really needed it. So, yeah, man, I'm big on getting right and getting prepared. So this week I've had a whole week here at home, and I've been working in my garage 3 to 5 hours a day, every day this week, just about. And I've been organizing and getting stuff right. I've still got a long ways to go, but I've got rested Thursday, rest of Friday, and then Saturday we have the Major League Anglers Association summer kickoff event, or kids event, and all kinds of stuff here at Guntersville. It'll be a lot of fun. So work days are done after Friday. Then we're going to be getting into the tournament week.
Well, I really appreciate you taking time to do this podcast, and because I know you got a lot going on, and you're very particular. But I even before we started the podcast, you were very particular getting the shot right. But I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and I appreciate you being perfectionistic, setting up the shot, because I'm very much the same way. But but I think before that we can talk a ton about stuff, and I want to get into more of the the tournament level stuff, and even the season so far and what you're looking forward to in the rest of the year. But I want to talk a little bit about how we know each other, because we actually go way back. In fact, I think I first really interacted with you. I mean, it was like, we're going way back. I had a stint where I was emceeing for bass, like between, I think it was like 2004, 2005. And I got to tell you, just my interactions with you then, like, you were the nicest, most, just courteous and just pleasant angler, I think, coming across the stage. I'm like, Randy, I mean, you make people feel like they're the only person, in the room or around. Like, you're just a very personable, nice, good dude. So I wanted to tell you that. Since I had the opportunity here. But I mean, I've felt that way for a long time, man. I just remember like first working with you back then, and you were just humble, but also just you seemed like you cared about people, and you just had a good air about you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. That means a lot, and that's the biggest compliment I can take from anybody, because it doesn't matter how many tournaments you win, how many trophies you got, if you don't have friends and you don't have relationships with people, you'll just sit here all by yourself and look at your trophies that mean nothing to you, and spend money on yourself that means nothing to you if you don't have good friends and good family and good relationships. And that's what this means more to me than anything else in this sport. And that's the coolest thing about this sport. Just like, you've got friends in probably every state, just like I do. I've got like 50-some hundred contacts in my iPhone, and if I need anything, anytime, anywhere, I can literally call somebody and get it. I mean, that's unbelievable to say that, and it's probably one of the only sports you could ever accumulate that many of relationships and friendships is from doing this for 30-plus years, and that means more than anything. So, I appreciate you saying that. I wish I could remember you emceed on the Bassmaster stage. I can't even remember that. I bet I don't even put two and two together on that.
I was the ESPN brass, and listen, I was young and full of it back then. I was in my late 20s. Would have been I was like 27, 28 or something. And it's kind of funny, like those days were really interesting when ESPN owned Bass, and there was, how should I say this? There was some Fish Fishburne was emceeing, and I was friends with Fish. And then they were at the ESPN brass was at odds with Fish, and I think the ESPN that was a long time ago, but it was definitely a funny time period in many ways. But yeah, so it was Fish and I kind of they were, and it was kind of like oil and water. Let's just put it that way. And I saw the behind the scenes with Fish and ESPN, and it was kind of an interesting time to be working in bass fishing then.
Speaking of Fish, I don't know if you've stayed in touch with him or not, but I just ran into him for the first time when we were at the Douglas Cherokee tournament. I ran into him in a Mexican restaurant out in the middle of nowhere where I was staying at Cherokee Lake, and ended up talking to him forever and sat down. He ate with me, and we caught up. I hadn't seen him in forever. And then one of my friends there that gave me a house to stay on the lake was a friend of his too. And then he, told me, oh yeah, Fish lives here, and I do his insurance for him here, and blah blah blah. So anyway, I caught up with him. I hadn't seen him in forever, and I'm like, what are you doing now? And he said, absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
He's the same guy he always was.
Yeah. No, I've had a lot of fun with Fish. There's some great stories there, but we only have so much time. So, but we go. I mean, I just remember, those tournaments, and when I first met you and interacted with you and everything, other than just seeing you on TV, and was very impressed. So I wanted to tell, say that to you. And
thank you.
But I wanted to get into, like, how did I asked this, to the pros that I have on here, like, how you got started fishing, because I'm always interested. For myself, it wasn't actually, a lot of times you think, parents will get an angler, a young person started into fishing. And for me, that wasn't the case. It was actually my buddy and I kind of learned, about fishing. We got into fishing that way. But how did you get started in fishing?
Yeah, mine is kind of a traditional story, so to speak, from the South. And I grew up in North Carolina, eastern North Carolina. And my dad was a big fisherman. He loved it, and he was a real good competitive angler. And he didn't have the money to really try to chase the pro dream. And it was in the 70s, late 60s and early 70s. I was born in 73, and he wanted to fish some Bassmaster stuff back in those days. And he actually fished one or two events, but him and my mom ran a big, like a grocery store, general store, convenience store. It had a little bit of everything in it, and it was kind of a busy 6 days a week, business. And so he really took me fishing. He was off on Mondays. I stayed out of school a lot on Mondays, and would go fishing with him a lot. And then just grew to love it from the passion that he had and what he taught me. And then when I was 11 years old, they found a fish camp marina business called Viverett's Timber Lodge that was actually going out of business or going bankrupt, where the elderly man was getting sick and was trying to get rid of it. So they actually bought this little fish camp marina business, little mom and pop tackle store, gas pump, boat rentals, little campground. And so when they got into that, my dad thought he was going to get to fish more because he loved fishing. And when he got into that, he kind of got where he didn't get to ever fish, because it was a 7-day-a-week job running that place. And I'm the only child, so I I did boat rentals, ran tackle store, did minnows and crickets, and did that every day home from school on the weekends and all summer. And then I became a fishing guide because my dad was guiding. Then I learned the Lake Gaston and Bugs Island Lake, there, Virginia, North Carolina border. So I started guiding when I was 11 years old. Honestly, 11 years old.
Wow.
People were paying my dad to take me to take them fishing at 11 and 12 years old. And so that's how I got into it. So I learned quickly to just to learn how to talk to people and deal with people and, all that, and learn how to try to catch fish on demand, so to speak. And I was a big basketball player there in North Carolina. So I loved basketball. That was my two passions, and played high school and I really wanted to play that more. And I wanted to fish for a long time. And then, but the competitive nature of that kind of turned into tournament fishing as a teenager, and I got into tournaments and then just chased that dream and wanting to be a pro angler. And that's kind of how I got into it right out of there. Me and my wife, Robin, we were high school sweethearts. She was a good athlete in school and she loved to fish. She come from a farming family that had ponds and had bass and all that. So me and her started dating like 16 years old, and I caught, big fish in her dad's pond, and I said, well, we don't need to wait to get married, then we need to hurry up and get married. And she's beautiful, she's smart, she knows how to fish, knows how to set the hook, and her dad's got a good pond, so let's get married young, So we got married a year out of high school, and when we were 18, 19 years old, we've been this actually next week during the tournament will be our 31st anniversary. So
nice work.
That's how I got into it anyway.
That's awesome, dude. So how did you make that jump? When I was a young kid, following tournament bass fishing, I saw in your bio that you were a huge fan of Rick Clunn. Like that was one of your heroes growing up, and that Rick Clunn was my hero too growing up. Like, how did you, so when I was saying earlier, I was just like, when I was a young kid, I just thirsted for how do you make that step? Like you're eating up with fishing, you're doing the more, smaller tournaments, but making that step to really doing this professionally. How did, tell me your story, how you made that jump. Like, to me, that's really, where the story is at, is like, how do you accomplish that?
Yeah, but in those days, that being in the 1990s, graduated high school in 91. And so my senior year of high school, my dad gave me, my mom and dad for my birthday, gave me an entry fee, paid me an entry fee, and got me into a Bassmaster Invitational on Bugs Island Reservoir. My birthday was in September, and the tournament was into September. And so I stayed out of school a whole week in September my senior year and fished that invitational. I got paired with Jay Ellis, got to know him well. After that, I got paired with Takahiro Mori. It was like one of his first years from Japan coming over. And I got, so that was my first taste. I finished 26th in the tournament and got a check, my first one at 17 years old. And that just lit the fire for me to chase the dream. I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I just kind of got me started. So my family really supported me in that, and I just went ahead and signed up for all the invitationals that year out of high school. And once you jump in the invitationals back in the 90s, you'd fish 6 invitationals all over the country, and the top 50 out of the 200 plus people that were in there would qualify to be on the top 100 tour back then. It was, or the top 150. It was like 150 for a while, 100 for a while, and then it became the Elite Series later. So I went right out of high school into it head first, and I finished 48th. I can still remember 48, so I barely made it. I didn't do like great, but I didn't do bad in any of them, so I consistently held myself in that top 50 and made the tour and got my tour card that first year. So I started on the tour at 18 and a half to turned 19 years old that first year on the 100 tour, and just never looked back. And I think what I tell people, the reason I made it so young is I didn't have a plan B. I had the only focus was that this is what I'm going to do. It wasn't no doubt that I was not going to make it. I mean, it was straight up, this is my career I'm choosing, and I'm going to go do it. And it wasn't easy, but we grinded through it, and I did it. We didn't have a plan B, basically, so I guess that's how I made it.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because there's all kinds of different ways that people have done it, There have been guys that had the plan B, but I guess, the most important thing is that, number one, you're super talented, and you just know how to grind. Like, you have to have a work ethic, and you do. I see it. I see it in everything that you do whenever I work with you. I mean, you're just, everything, like you were saying earlier, you're a perfectionist, and you just take your time with things, and I think that's just, no matter what, you're going to be successful if you have, that kind of a work ethic, and obviously you have it. So that's a huge, like, maybe the most important ingredient.
Another thing, let me add to that. So another thing probably that helped, I went through a lot of adversity at that early age right there. I had ulcerative colitis in high school, inflammatory bowel disease, and it turned into a really bad disease. Took my whole colon over there the first year we got married, 6 months. And so 6 months after we got married, in the little waiting period between when I qualified to fish on the tour, it started in May of 94, and in November of 93, right after I finished those invitationals, I went to a Redman regional tournament in West Point, Georgia, and my colon ruptured while I was on the water, and I started throwing up blood and ended up rushing back in 10 or 11 hours to North Carolina and went right in the hospital and had 3 holes that had perforated in my colon, and I had to have emergency surgery, and I stayed in intensive care for 2 weeks and kind of looked like I was done for a little bit, and that's where my faith really came into play. I'm a big guy, I'm a big outspoken guy with my faith, and the Lord's blessed me so much to do what I do, but that was the starting point of where my faith really, the rubber meets the road. That's where I almost died, and I went through my soul searching of who I am and what I believe in, and what am I going to make it, and if I'm not supposed to be a pro fisherman, I'll go do whatever you want me to do, Lord. That's kind of what was my surrender, and thankfully everything started coming together. I had 3 major surgeries in about 4 months' time, and at Duke Medical Center, and lost 40 pounds, went through a lot, but I came right out of it and recovered, and was able to start on the Top 100 tour in May of 94, and I was 5'11", 117 pounds when I started on the tour, because I had been so skinny from all that, taking all my colon out and everything else, but I never missed a beat. I never, I can't say I never got discouraged. I was discouraged, but I was determined that I was going to make it, and it was all just a testimony. It's what this was about. It wasn't to stop me, but I was going to keep doing it and make it. So that perseverance, and that kind of brought me and my wife really, really close early on. Been married 6 months when that happened, and she had to take care of me as she went to college and got a teaching degree, and it just made us more determined, more grind worthy, so to speak, as we call it in fishing. And that's where I learned to grind and not to give up, and that worked really well in the tour for me to make it out here.
And you see that, I see you interact with your wife, on the tour, and yeah, that it's like that going through that turbulent time maybe strengthened the bond between you, because you guys, I mean, yep. I'm seeing things, as an outsider, but you guys seem to really have a good thing going there. And really work well on the road, because that's that can be difficult. But I've known that you've had this condition, and it's even your career is impressive enough, but just your work ethic on the water. But then knowing also that you have what's the term? What's the official?
Well, now I had ulcerative colitis, inflammatory bowel disease, but they took all of it out, all of the colon and all that colon, large intestine, rectal line, and all that stuff got taken out of me and reconstructed inside. So I basically just have a lot less inner parts and plumbing than the average person, and it just makes me have to go to the bathroom a lot more often, and watch what I eat, and that's one of the reasons I stay so skinny, because of that.
Right, but that's just to be competitive, out there as you are, and having that adversity. I mean, and you're kicking butt. So kudos to you. And I'm glad I'm glad you brought it up, because I did want to talk about it. But I was like, I was going to bring it up before we started the podcast because I think it's a really cool story. I mean, it just goes to show you, people that didn't maybe know that about you. It's interesting that you've had to go through that, and it just says even more about you as far as I'm concerned, as far as your work.
The struggles as a cameraman in the boat with me. You know how many times I have to go run out and try to go to a bathroom or go find somewhere to go to the bathroom.
Well, it's not even. But what's impressive? It's not even. Honestly, I've had to go to the bathroom for the first time. What's funny is the last 2 years. I've had to go to the bathroom on the boat, and I've never had to in my career before, except now it's just something that happens now. So, but no, I don't. You haven't done it that much. I mean, it's so I'm impressed. I guess is all I wanted to say as far as just how you're handling that, and but how as far as your so far, the season goes I don't know. What are we? We're going to Gunnersville. Is that going to be stop?
4.
That's 4, right? So what do you think of the season so far?
Man, I'm fired up about the season. I've had it's been a great start to the year. I've had 4. Let's see, I fished Red Crest and heavy hitters and 3 stages. So it's been 5 Bass Pro Tour events, and I made the cut in 4 of the 5, and I made the top 10 at Red Crest, and I made the top 5 at heavy hitters. So unfortunately, those 2 weren't points tournaments. So I'd be sitting a lot higher in the points, but I'm still inside of Red Crest right now, like 31st place, I think, in the points. And I've led 3. I've led 3 or won 3 different rounds this year, maybe out of 7 or 8 chances, I guess. And I've just had that. I've not had the good 3rd day in the knockout day, and that's the day we start back at 0. And then I haven't had a great day on those days, and that's why I finished into 21st, 31st, and 41st. And but I love it. I mean, I've been catching a big fish just about every tournament. All last year, I caught a big fish in every tournament. I won the heavy hitters category, which we didn't get anything extra for, but I got bragging rights amongst my competitors that I caught the most big fish all year, and that's kind of turned into this year too. It's been rolling along. I've been catching a pretty good one in every tournament, and keeping myself up there for heavy hitters. And man, I'll tell you, I'm fishing with a lot of confidence right now. My health is better than it's been in a long time. I went through a rough spell there during that COVID time. That first year, I had to miss a tournament and had a really bad season. Went through a bunch of stuff because my previous health conditions that I've dealt with really didn't do well when I got that Delta COVID and the medicine I had to take. A lot of things happened there that were never really talked about because it didn't matter to anybody else. But, I went through a rough spell there and finished right at the bottom of the tour that, 2 years ago. And so last year was my year to come back, and I started feeling good. I fished good. I had caught big fish for the year, and that kind of got me back going. I finished 20-something and made Red Crest. So I'm back on the right momentum train. I'm feeling good and got confidence. Faith's good, and I'm excited about the rest of the year.
That's awesome. Speaking of, doing well and whatnot, but I wanted to ask you about the Classic. You'd won the Classic in 2014, and, that's such a huge milestone in an angler's career. And what was that like for you to win the Classic? Just kind of go through that, as someone who you've put so much emphasis on. You don't have a plan B. This is what I'm going to do. I've loved this for as long as I can remember. To just put us back into that moment when you won the Classic and what it meant for you.
Yeah, that was definitely the highlight of my career, and that's what we, before Major League Fishing came along in 2019, that was what we had. That was the biggest, professional platform there was, and the Bassmaster Classic was the biggest thing in the sport to win. So that's what we all were fishing for every year. That was our goal, our life, to try to win the Classic. And I've been real consistent all my career, but I've not really won many tournaments like I would like to. I've always been close, but a lot of tournaments in the past I've just not done the right thing on the last day. And I've had top 5s and top 10s and 20s a lot, but getting that win was a big deal. So I'd had like 3 major wins prior to that classic, or 4. And so that was my 12th classic. So I qualified for 16 classics out of the 20 years at Bass. So before I fished Major League Fishing, and that year was my 12th one. And every year I wanted to win, but this one was at Guntersville in Birmingham, and I didn't live at Guntersville yet. I still lived in that Birmingham area, but King's Home, who we do the charity boat, my boat giveaway every year for, is in that Birmingham area. So that's the girls and boys ranches and homes, and the women's homes and all that we help promote and speak for and do a lot of stuff to help raise money with my boat giveaway. So they were going to be in the arena. I got them special seating for the whole crowd to come in on the final day. So my goal there a lot was to make the final day and try to at least be able to come in and weigh in on stage and recognize them and highlight that whole setup with the boat giveaway. And I didn't have a very good practice. I had no thought of winning because I was out after, long story short, 2 days I fished. I was in 12th first day, 11th the second day. So going into the final day, I was in 11th, almost 10 pounds back, a little over 9.5 pounds back. So mathematically, I had already been written off as a chance to win. And in my mind, the pressure was off. I was finally done with the stress of being a local guy, and I'm not going to win, so I'm going to enjoy my last day of fishing in the cut. And so then that was the day that the magic happened. That was the day that the miracle of God happened that day. It was just still, to this day, it's the most amazing thing in my life that's ever happened. But just how the story goes, everybody knows I was running up the lake that morning, going to another place. I already had my wife and boys, and Livingston guys were going to film me at this other bridge that I was starting at up the lake. And as I was running, like I've said before, I had an overwhelming urge to turn the boat around and go back to the Spring Creek Bridge. And it was so powerful of a thing. I was seeing it in my head like a video playing of me standing under the bridge catching fish. And I knew that it was not me thinking that this was a supernatural type thing happening in my mind. So
I hate to interrupt you, but it sounds like you had a Rick Clunn moment. Sounds like you had a Rick Clunn moment. Like, I mean, it's kind of funny, but yeah. There's a lot of things have happened similar to that. Mine points to, I know where mine came from. So mine came from God above for sure, and I went straight there. And as I pulled up, I caught first fish, second fish, third fish. Every cast I caught one. My third cast I caught a 7-pounder. And I knew, then that it was the right move. And still, one of my friends pulled up on the bridge and saw me catching fish, and then people started lining up down the causeway watching. And I told him to call Robin and tell her to come to that bridge, that I was going to be there. So she called. They all showed up there. And in about 30, 45 minutes, it probably had 100 people because everybody was in town watching the Classic. So we had a gallery of people watching me catch fish every cast there, and it was just unbelievable. And so I still, though, because of the old style of fishing, the way Bassmaster does it, you still don't know what anybody's catching, so you don't know where you stand. There's no scoreboard, and that's the greatest thing about Major League Fishing. Now we have a scoreboard, so we know where we stand, and that makes a huge difference in everything we do, all the decisions you make. So that day, I didn't know I had a chance to win, so I was just having a good time catching fish and catching a bunch, and they quit biting, and I had about 21 pounds, and sun came up, water quit running. I changed the baits a few times, and I put my Livingston crankbait on that became the Livingston Howler after that, and that was the bait that I turned them back on and got them biting, and they were a little deeper, and I caught them all the rest of the day on that one Guntersville crawfish-colored Howler Livingston crankbait, and ended up catching, 29 pounds that day, and coming in not knowing that I was going to win, and lo and behold, after I get in the arena, they weigh me in early. So when you weigh in early, you normally you're not going to win because they usually hold you to the end. But I think I surprised them too. Had a little more than I even thought I had because I didn't weigh them, and in the end, I won by 1 pound, and and not only was it a miracle to come from that far back and catch 29 pounds, but it was also a miracle that 10 guys ahead of me
faltered enough that I could win, because typically that many guys, Edwin Evers was leading, and Edwin doesn't falter. He's a closer, and everybody else ahead of me were all veteran anglers that usually catch them every day they go out, and they didn't that day, and that was the other thing that allowed me to be able to win. So it was an unbelievable, special moment, and it caught me by surprise, and it was a dream come true, and it really it happened. It couldn't have happened a better way. All the times I'd scripted in my head how I was going to win the Classic all these years, I always thought I had it all figured out, and this is the way it was going to happen. But this came on such a blindside, unexpected deal. That's just what made it so much more special. And the story, even if it hadn't been me, if it had been anybody else, Greg, I would say the same thing. I still believe the way the story happened, the way the comeback happened, it was the best memory in Bassmaster Classic history as far as I'm concerned, and it just happened to be me that got to be the one to do it. But it's still, the story lives on. Almost 9 years now, everywhere I go, people bring that story up, and people get tears in their eyes telling the story after that watched it on TV or watched it on live, and it's just a special story. And man, I'm just thankful that it happened to me, at the right time, right place.
No, that's fantastic, and it goes to show too, like in fishing, anything is possible. I mean, it's almost like you just have to put your head down. That's such a lesson, just in life too. Just put your head down and just go and just grind. And even if you think, it's to be able to accomplish something is insurmountable. You just go. Something like you can just overthink sometimes, and you show that it's possible. And that's a fantastic story. How did your life change? That moment that you hoisted that trophy up.
Man, I tell you, it's amazing how much it made a difference in my career. I'd already been fishing for almost 20 years, and I'd already made all those classics, but because I didn't have that title, I still was kind of just a good average angler that made a living fishing, but not very many people in the world that fished really knew who I was or respected anything about who I was or what I stood for or whatever, So that just gave me the credibility and the accountability, and it just everything that you need to be, one of the main guys in a sport. That you've got to have that title, and I'm just thankful that I was able to get it, at a time, especially at a time in the sport when the sport was thriving pretty good, and all the best anglers win the Classic, and it was just a really good time for the sport, and to be able to represent the sport that year. So it really opened a lot of doors all over the country. I mean, I went to a lot of great places and made appearances and speaking, and it really helped my income, of course, because that just took you to another level for endorsement fees and speaking fees and different things like that. But just the platform it gave me to go and speak to more people and help more people, and tell my story about the stuff my adversity I've been through in the past, and I've been able to help a lot of other people that have had those same type of battles with their health problems. And everywhere I go, I'll meet a handful of people that have that disease or have had it, and I've been able to point them to good doctors, good medicine, a lot of things like that, and it's just been great for that part.
Oh, that's fantastic. What I want to know if you can offer some insights. What is it like? So obviously everybody knows that, okay, the fishing side of things, as far as you're fishing professionally and what tournaments you're fishing in a year. But what I think is almost what I find maybe more interesting is how you actually make the whole machine run in a year, right? Like how, like business, like you have a number of sponsors. You're a great businessman. You're very good with your sponsors. You promote products really, really well. Tell me, like, if you can offer some insights into that aspect of being a professional fisherman.
Yeah, that's been the biggest thing in my career. I've definitely make a lot more money off of my sponsors and endorsements and things we do, influencing deals, versus winnings, and that's what I tell all the young anglers that are coming out of college trying to be professional anglers. If you come into professional fishing thinking that you're going to make a living off of what you win, that you're in trouble, because it just, no matter how good you are or who you are, you might win a few tournaments and get ahead for a while, but it's an ebb and a flow in the sport. And even Jacob Wheeler, who I think is the greatest ever competitively pick up a rod and reel, and has won as much as he's done, you still see, just recently Jacob Wheeler hit a little down spiral and had a bad tournament or two, and he didn't do as good as he's always done. And that's the way the sport is. It doesn't matter who you are. You can't depend on winnings to make a living for your whole life and a career. So you got to be able to have a personality. You got to be able to care about people, and you got to be able to, be believable and have integrity. Fish products that, use products and believe in them before somebody sponsors you with them. You got to love a product and make yourself believable, and not jump around to everywhere that offers you a couple $100 more, a couple $1,000 more to go here, there, and everywhere, because then you're not as believable to the public. Everybody that hears me talk, when I tell them I'm using a bait, or this is the best bait to me, or the best rod, or the best boat, the best motor, or whatever, they can look at my track record and say, maybe Randy might really be telling the truth, because he's done this for 30 years and he's had these same sponsors his whole career. And that means a lot to me. And I've missed out on more money at times and places because I believe in a product, and I'd rather stay with somebody that I really like the people and I like the product more than the money, the little extra money. And it all pays off down the road when you live that way. And you gotta, and that's what I try to teach my boys. My son Laker's 21, and he's out here on tour. He's fished Toyotas, and he's qualified now on the Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit and fishing those two. And he's kind of learning the same deal, that he's learning to market himself good, and he's doing a good job with it. And he's already making really good money at his age just from his marketing deals and deals that he's put together on his own that I didn't have anything to do with, because he's learning that it's all about building those relationships and building your integrity.
Is it when you're looking for a sponsor, or is it? Do you find? Let's put it this way: the average guy, tournament angler right now, fishing professionally, is he having? I'm just saying, the guy right in the middle of the road, is he having sponsors come to him, or is he going to sponsors more, or how does that dynamic work?
I'm plugging my phone up here because it's going down low, so that's what I'm jumping around here. But,
yeah, no worries.
Yeah, most of the time, I really feel like nobody comes to you very often. That's just what it looks like to me. And they may come to some people that if you come out here and you bust on the scene really fast and you win, 2 or 3 tournaments really quick, and you do like Jacob Wheeler's done, and I know Jordan Lee was kind of like that in the early stages. He won several big events, won 2 classics, and I'm sure some people came to him in those situations. But somebody like me, who I've started a long time ago, and I've been a grinder and a climber and just a consistent angler. Those kind of people, I think you really have to seek it out yourself, and you got to go find it. And most of the time, it's never just simply sending a resume into a company or blind calling somebody. It's always who you know, and it's no matter what sport or what business you're in, you got to have a connection. You got to have the right people. That's why I tell all the young anglers all the time, it's about relationships. And when you're building friendships and relationships, you'll meet somebody in the boat, one of your co-anglers or your marshals or your boat officials, and they'll know somebody that has a business that, and they love to fish, and then all of a sudden they make the contact for you, and you talk to the guy and you take him fishing or whatever, and then all of a sudden you get a sponsorship out of this guy. And that's what Laker has done. He's got 3 money-paying sponsors that are paying all his entry fees and expenses, and they're all 3 people that came from guide trips that he built relationships with people, and a friend of a friend had the contact, and boom, that's how that stuff happens. So it's all about, that's why I tell guys it's big to never know who you're talking to, never know who you're in the boat with, or never know, even just even in a restaurant, somebody walks up and meets you, you never know if that guy could be the guy to unlock the door for your sponsorship money down the road somewhere. So you always treat people with respect and care about people, and, always be more willing to give of yourself and your time, because it'll always come back to you.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic advice there. That's I mean, yeah, that's a great way just to, live a life, just be good to people, because you never know. Just it's good to be good to people anyway. But
That's
and
right.
also, like, you don't know who you're talking to, and they could lend a helping hand down the road, But
That's right. There's a lot of millionaires out here that love to fish and that don't really know how to fish, and they've got all the right equipment, and all they're waiting for is the right kid to come along to teach them how to use their electronics and how to set up their equipment and make them catch more bass, and they'll pay you whatever you got, whatever you want to get that. And that's all about finding that right person and making those relationships, and that's how you get where you're going,
Yeah, I was in a highfalutin bass club in Springfield, Missouri, and there were some very wealthy guys in that bass club. And they couldn't fish worth a lick. But also, many of them.
I think that's normal. Yeah, and that's normal. It's really like that. But those guys are some of the nicest people,
no doubt,
as you know. And that's some of the people that are some of my greatest friends all over the country, and a lot of older men that are a good bit older than me that have been almost like dads to me over the years that I've met, at bass clubs, speaking at events and at shows and things like that, and become friends with. And that's the coolest thing. Like I said in the beginning, that's what means more to me than anything.
That's awesome. You're talking about your son's Laker. You have Laker and Oakley. So how hard was that with Robin and you, like raising them up, like raising a family on the road? What was that like? Like just managing that had to be quite difficult.
Yeah. I tell you, it's been crazy, but it's been looking back how fast it's gone by is what's even crazier. And the best thing about it is Robin was the best supporter there was. She believed 100% in me making it as a fisherman, and she, got her teaching degree, didn't end up having to teach, and she was able to travel with me because we wanted to stay on the road together, and we, campers and motorhomes, and we waited 9.5 years before we ever had kids, so I was making a living before we started having them. And then she was able to use her teaching degree to homeschool on the road. So for, 15, 16 years there, homeschooled Laker all the way through K through 12 and graduated through homeschool Oakley. He was a good athlete, and after we moved here to Guntersville, he got to know a lot of friends here, and everybody wanted to play basketball. And I love basketball, so I didn't want to keep him from being able to do that. So that's when Robin started staying home and put him in high school. So the last 2 years I've been solo on the road while he's been home playing basketball. He'll be a senior next year, and then after he's graduated, Robin will be back on the road with me, and that'll be great. But just homeschooling him on the road, we were able to see the country together. We were able to be together. It was a lot. There was times that's stressful, but there's also way better times than we could, all the great memories. Both those kids have been to 40-plus states, and they've seen the country. They both got adventurous spirits about them because they've grown up on the road and eaten food all over the country and met people everywhere, and it's just made them be well-rounded guys that, are respectful and, love life, and that comes from being on this traveling road like we've been on all these years. So, it really wasn't. I look back, it used to feel hard when we were doing it, but after I look back at it, it wasn't really that hard.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a pretty ideal situation, the way that you did it. And I think anymore, I got to tell you more and more, I'm thinking homeschooling is the way to raise kids nowadays. But that's probably a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, that's another show.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I wanted, since you've been doing this for 30 years, there has been so much going on in the world of bass fishing. I mean, in the last 10 years, it's been mind-blowing. But in the 30 years you've been doing this competitively, what are the biggest changes? Like, what do you think is the biggest change? But just in general, what are the biggest changes that you've seen?
I'll tell you, fishing-wise, the biggest changes, and without a doubt, has been the addition of forward-facing sonar, and that's always a hot topic of discussion, and it's a controversial one amongst whoever you're with. The older generation doesn't like it. The younger generation loves it, and that's all they want to do. And so I'm kind of a tweener, as they call it, I think. I'm between the old and the young, and I'm still trying to stay young, so I I've embraced it, and I've wanted to get better with it because I know that I can't be competitive in the direction we're going in the sport if you don't embrace it and learn to be good with it. And so my son, that's one thing my son Laker has done. He's helped me get better with the electronics. He taught me how to set my Lowrance stuff up, taught me how to read it, went out and fished, and we played video games on the water, as I call it, and learned how to catch fish doing that, and it brought my confidence level up, tremendously, and it's helped me to get better with it. And so without a doubt, that's the biggest thing that's changed in the sport, and it's just unlocked a whole new world of bass on every lake and river that we never even knew existed. I mean, they live out there in the middle of the lake, swimming around everywhere, and nobody ever knew it because you couldn't see them until we have active target and sonar that you can look out there and see them. And I know you could probably tell some way better stories than me because you get the pleasure of being with every great angler behind that camera and seeing how amazing some of these guys are with it. Like Dakota Ebear and Wheeler and Connell. It's name one after another, but those three stand out as being so good with it. Michael Neal, and you get to see it, so you know how much it's changed the way we fish, and so I'm excited. It's really reignited my passion for fishing because it's a whole new game that I'm learning every time I go, and I'm trying to get better with, and I feel like the sky's the limit with it.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I saw in Bass Blaster, there's even now, it's crazy how there's so much emphasis and focus on forward-facing sonar, even lures being made specifically for it, but even now accessories to put on your power poles that will slow. Have you seen that thing? Like what?
I saw a Bass Blaster.
Yeah. And so it's these accessories. I guess it's like two props on the ends of your power poles, and that allows you to. It allows you. I guess if you're out just like scanning in on the water column, you're just out going full speed scanning the water column, and then all of a sudden, if you see a bunch of fish, you put those things down and it just stops you immediately. I guess is my understanding.
Wow.
And so then you can
I didn't see it.
Yeah,
I didn't see it. I just saw the teaser he had, but then I haven't gone back and looked to see what the rest of the story was yet. So I got to go check that out.
Yeah, so it's basically slamming on the brakes. So it's like these guys. I think it started with crappie fishing. So these guys would just put the trolling motor on high and just burn, and just scan, I guess it's the most, more of the open water areas of the lake, and just rip. And then once they see something, they put those down reverse thrusters, I guess, and that stops them. They call them like it's water brakes essentially. So
wow,
yeah, it's
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's just wild just the technology that's we've seen in the last just the last few years. But I really feel like in many ways we're in the golden age of fishing. I remember way back in the 90s when the first sharp points were really coming out. Like a lot of Japanese manufacturers, the expensive Japanese lures. Now there's so many great, you're sponsored by Livingston. They're making amazing looking stuff. They've got the sound technology. I just feel like this is like the golden era of fishing that we're in. Like even like apparel, clothing. It's like fishing with the youth. You see it with the youth. It's like, and I've always thought fishing was cool, but it's like you feel like the youth. It's cool now. More mainstream or whatever. Do you see that as well? Like.
Yeah, it sure is, and I'm so glad to see it too because it's going where it needs to go, and college fishing has got so much to do with it, high school and college fishing, and making it a true sport in schools and collegiate sport, and that kind of makes it put it on the map as this is a cool thing to be a part of. It's not just a good old boys sitting under a tree, drinking beer and fishing with a bobber. The old stereotype's kind of gone out the window, hopefully, and I'm glad of that because this is a true sport that takes a lot of time, takes a lot of talent, a lot of effort, and it's a life sport that you can do all your life. You don't age out of it, and you can do it for recreation and family and fun, or you can do it, to try to make money. And that's the only sport that's like that, and that's why it's so cool to see it being more mainstream and see the growth that it's had, and see the the equipment coming along like it is, and the Bass Pro, the world doing, Johnny Morris and Bass Pro. They're such a big, conservation group, and they've helped so much, with Major League Fishing, and then with Major League Fishing starting in, way back in, 2010 or 11 or 12, whenever it was, but the Bass Pro Tour starting in 19, and then getting the emphasis on conservation to take care of the fish, catch, weigh, release. That's a really big deal too. That's going to help us long term, and it's going to grow into more tournaments down the road. So, it's just, I think, like you say, this is the golden age, and I'm glad that I'm still, I still feel like I'm in a peak age in my career, even though I might be older than some of the average. I think I'm still peaking right now, and my confidence is higher, and I'm excited to be here where I'm at right now to see what the future has to hold.
What do you think, just in general, about the state of bass fishing? Now we have bass and we have Major League Fishing. Major League Fishing's gone to the gone back to the 5 fish, limit. What are your thoughts on that? We started that this year, back to the 5 fish. What are your thoughts on that? Are you, as far as like bass fishing ever becoming mainstream, do you think that it can become mainstream with 2 tours, or do you think that there really just needs to be like one, big, like, just like there's one NHL, there's one NBA, there's what are your thoughts on some of those
Yeah,
things?
it's definitely to see the Major League Fishing with the media platform. That's the one thing that has been so much better that Major League Fishing's been able to provide pro anglers, is the better media platform and the better coverage with the live stream, and that's really getting that's growing to where it needs to be. And as more sponsors coming in, more companies are seeing the value in it. But like you say, for it to be mainstream and go live on national television like golf and some of the other sports, it definitely has to be a one dominant force, and I feel like that is going to be Major League Fishing, because they've got the cutting edge with the technology, and they've got the best media partner in the world there with Kroenke Sports Entertainment. Kroenke owns the Los Angeles Rams and the Denver Nuggets and one of the NHL teams, and so he's part owner in Major League Fishing, for those that didn't know that. And they've got the platform, and they've got the money, and they've got the vision, along with Boyd Duckett and Major League Fishing, to be able to keep taking our sport to another level over and over and over. And it's going to happen. It just takes time, and it takes money, and it takes support. But I feel like we're in the right place right now for the growth, and eventually, we're going to start seeing some live events and live streaming right on national television, and that's what we're waiting on.
Yeah, I feel good about just the amount of youth that are there's more youth in the sport, and there's more. There seems to be more youthful passion in the sport than ever before, and I think when those younger anglers, they're in high school now, when they start getting into getting into fishing professionally, and then and even if they don't fish professionally, they're passionate about fishing, getting into positions, of companies in the fishing industry.
Mm-hmm.
The more people you have passionate in the fishing industry, the better the fishing industry is going to be. And I feel the same way about specifically bass fishing. So I think just seeing this younger influx of anglers is just a real positive. There's a lot of bad things about social media, but there's a lot of great things you're seeing in youthful social media in the fishing realm, and doing things that I never even imagined, never creatively thought of. That I'm just seeing a lot of really just exciting things happening, with younger anglers, and I think they're just going to bring a much needed shot in the arm. And it's been happening, but I think it's just going to get better and better.
Yeah, it is, and that's why it is good to still have two major tours, even though they're competitors, Bassmaster and Major League Fishing, because that does give more opportunities to more people, because it's only a certain amount of people that can fish on the Bass Pro Tour, 80 guys, and 150 on the Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit. So, and there's a whole lot more anglers out there that want to be, that want to be more, involved and want to get in it more, but they don't have the opportunity to. So the more tournaments are out there, the more people have a place to go try to fish and work their way up the ladder. So that part of it's good, and I think, like you say, the future's bright, and there's a lot of opportunities, and this is the first time really, probably the last 5 years, that I really feel good about encouraging young anglers in high school to choose this as a career path. In the early years, it was hard to try to tell people, hey, you can make it as a pro fisherman. You want to do all you can to get out here and make it, because I knew how hard of a grind it was and how limited the chances were of really surviving and making it. But now I feel like it's a lot better than it's ever been.
Well, that's great to hear, and I've taken up too much of your time, Randy. You got to get ready for Guntersville coming up. But I just want to say, man, I've really appreciated talking with you. I've really this has been awesome, and I love your insight. Like I said earlier, I've been a fan of yours for a long time. You're just a humble gentleman, and boy, the world needs more people like you. Thanks again, brother. I really appreciate talking with you.
I feel the same about you, Greg. I appreciate you, and keep up the good work on your side, and angling overloaded and filming all these good shows, and hopefully we're going to win a tournament together out there in the boat here real soon.
We're going to do it, Randy. Before we close, tell people how they can find you. Tell me socials, give them the whole spiel.
Yeah. All right, yeah, I'm all over all the social networks, Instagram, Facebook, at Randy Howell Fishing, and that's the two main platforms. And randyhowell.com is still my website, has a lot of info and photos and booking information on there to come speak at events and things like that. So, give me a follow, keep up with us. We have a lot of entertaining things, a lot of little educational stuff and some clips here and there, and we try to keep people informed of what's going on in the fishing world. So thank everybody for following me, and let's keep growing that, and y'all be ready for live stream at Guntersville next week. It's going to be fun.
All right, Randy, thanks again, man, and I will see you at Guntersville.